Hello hobby friends, I'm Jason and this is Level Up Hobbies. Thanks for joining me today as I drop a new video. It's been a little bit. This one is going to be for Orktober, but that was a month ago, so I'm rolling it into November, so I guess it's Norkvember? I mean, it works for me, so whatever. So happy Norkvember. This video is for Gorzag Gitstompa and his little buddy Nikkit. It was actually a Warhammer Commemorative Series Model which came out last year, maybe the year before. It's actually been out for a little while. But anyways, it's just been in my stockpile of things to do, so I figured it'd be a great addition to my orc collection. Even though I'm not going to use him in my army, he's just going to be a kind of just a display piece. But yeah, so that's enough talking. Let's go ahead, let's jump in, let's build and paint this guy, and I'll see you guys at the end. Later. Okay, let's get started building Gorzag Gitstompa and his little buddy Nikkit. So this is supposed to be another edition for Orktober, but my timeline's got a little messed up and I haven't really been putting out a lot of content lately, so I just figured I'd roll this over into November and just, add another video. So nothing wrong with that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and rip this open and start building. Okay, let's make this quick here. And that transition was so smooth you probably didn't even notice it. All right, moving on, we are going to work on the base. So he comes with a standard 30 mil base, but I wanted to change that a bit because I've already got 50 knobs in my army. I don't need another one. So I'm going to make this more of just like a display piece for my painting. And for that, I bumped up the base size to a 50 mil, like what the Terminators are on. And I'm going to try to figure out how to mount like Nikkit on here with him and just kind of make like a little mini display. Okay, we're going to start by adding just a little bit of elevation to this base, and to do that I'm going to add a couple layers of cork just with some super glue. Add a chunk of cork on here and tear off the edges so it's roughly the same size as the base itself. I add a few layers here. I did 2 layers of cork, and now I'm adding some metal grating here just to add a little bit of variation to the base material. I'm going to cut it for size and then clip it down to however big I need it. I'm using scissors right here because I'm not really caring whether or not it's a smooth cut or not. I actually would prefer it to be jagged and kind of uneven, as much as possible. And then I go in with a pair of nippers and just start adding some damage to the metal plating here. And now it's time for a little test fit just to make sure the model is looking right on this base, and just thinking of what else I could add to bring this base to life. And now I take extra thin cement and I run it very carefully around and over the cork. The cork will soak this in and it will make it a lot harder and a lot more stable to drill and mount models into, like whenever I pin them to the base. I do caution you on this because take it slowly. If it starts to run, make sure you have something to set this on or wipe it up with, because I have glued my fingers to the bases before and the bases to the table, and so on. So just be careful when you're doing this part here. I then add AK Interactive Muddy Ground to all of the rock and dirt areas just to get rid of that look of cork. This is very good. You can brush it on, and then I thin it out a little bit by just getting my brush wet and just running it all over it. And it kind of soaks into those little crevices and covers up that texture from the cork. Now on to painting. So I began by priming this model black, and then I go in with my airbrush and apply a base coat to all the skin of dark purple from Pro Acryl. If you're using other model lines such as GW, Nagaroth Night is basically a pretty close alternative to this. And for the skin tone, I start off with a layer of dark camo green from Pro Acryl. I leave the dark purple down in the recesses to give a very nice deep shadow, and then I just pull that color to the highest point, just build that layer up. And now I move on to camo green from Pro Acryl. This, I again thin it out and just work on a little bit higher on those skin tones. I don't want to go all the way down into the shadows. I don't want to cover all of that dark camo green up, because then you lose that transition from the purple up into the highlighted green. So just go through, work your areas. I started putting a little bit of texture into my brush strokes, as in just adding kind of like where the muscles separated, like on the skin. You can see that kind of like in the shoulders, like mostly, and just kind of the arms, just to show a little bit more detail and not just a flat color. Now for the next layer, I took a 50-50 mix of camo green and yellow green, and I really worked on developing that texture on the muscles. I'm not really sure what happened to that video, but I've lost that clip. So what you're seeing right here is straight yellow-green, and I thinned this down because otherwise it is very, very overpowering. And then I really just get those final highlights, those final shapes, drawn in here for the skin tone. And now I start blocking in anything that will be black using Pro Acryl's Coal Black. I created the first highlight for this using a 50-50 mix of Coal Black and Blue Black, both from Pro Acryl. Now I made sure this was nice and thin, so it goes on, and I can really build that up just by kind of glazing up those highlights without it getting over the top. Otherwise it can get very, very bright, and I don't want that. I want to keep these like highlights very subtle. I finished it up with a highlight of straight blue black. I stopped it here because I didn't want these highlights to get extremely bright, and I wanted to keep it very, very fairly subdued. So moving on to his trousers, I based these with Pro Acryl's Light Umber. I made sure, obviously you thin this out, and then I just build that color up. I kind of left some shadows in those recesses just by not filling that in totally, like not making it totally opaque with that light umber. And it made some pretty good like transition pieces here. Next, I create a layer using light umber and ivory, and I just work this in, like leaving some transitions and add just a little bit more detail to this layer here. And for the final highlight, I take that previous mix of light umber and ivory, and I just add a little bit more ivory to that to lighten it up and do those final highlights. For the reds, I start off with a base of burnt sienna. This is from Proacryl. That's followed up with a pin wash of Gorgonzola Fur contrast paint from GW. And really, you can use any kind of deeper brown. All you want is something for the shadows here. Now we want to bring that color up and just really make it pop. So I take some thinned down bold pyrrole red from Proacryl, and I just kind of glaze this into the highlights, and this will really bring that color to life here. Now I'm going to finish off this red by adding a little bit of orange to that bold pyrrole red and just doing some final edge highlights, some little nicks and gashes like through the leather and red painted parts here. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, you kind of don't want it to be. You really want it to look like it's something that's been used and just beaten up. So don't try to be perfect here. And moving on to the leather bits here, I based mine with dark umber. This is really nice for this. It's got great coverage, and it's a very dark brown with just a hint of the warmer colors in it. So. Next, I painted on some Cygor brown contrast paint. I thinned this down just a little bit because I didn't want it to have total coverage. I still wanted it to be transparent so that dark umber can shine through. But this has a very nice quality. It just adds like kind of like that oil rubbed like leather feel to it. And now I start adding highlights using light umber. Now for these, I don't want just a hard edge highlight. I want it to look like it's been bumped and just kind of worn down to that raw leather feel. So I just do like little like dots and just kind of tap the edges and build scrapes and scuffs up on the leather edges there. Now you can stop where it is here. I took it one step farther by making a final highlight of light umber and dark ivory. And this, I didn't go over every spot that I did the previous highlight. I just wanted some extra spots that are worn down and just kind of more of a fresh wear to them. Now for all of his teeth and bone, I used the exact same mix that I did for the leather parts, except I did a final highlight of straight dark ivory. And on these, I just kind of worked up from darkest to lightest, leaving a little bit of the previous color showing, every step. All of the steel bits, they got a base coat of Vallejo's metal color, the exhaust manifold. I like this because it's kind of a gunmetal color, but then it's got a dirty tinge to it. So it really plays well with metal bits like this. All of the gold looking bits are base coated with Proacryl's bronze. All of the metal then receives a brown wash. This is the Pro Acryls brand. You can use really any wash you want. Go ahead and just cover it, make it look nice and grimy and dirty here. Now I go back in with some gunmetal gray and just start adding some highlights. These don't have to be pretty, just anywhere that rust and grime has been scraped off in battle. All the white bits receive a base coat of warm gray. That's then highlighted with Ghost Gray from Vallejo. I decide that the flesh and a little bit of the skin needs a little bit more detail work, so I start doing glazes of Magos Purple contrast paint over the lips and elbows. Now to start working on the base, I add some color here using warm gray to all of the stone texture here. So all of this cork receives a nice coat of warm gray. I don't really care if it's total coverage. If there's, like you can see right here, if there's spots that the black shows through, that's fine, because I'm going to be working this up in layers and doing washes and more colors and everything. So the black just adds to it, so don't worry about that. Next I go in and I add a little bit of more texture, just weathering to this metal plate using some Citadel's Texture Iron Crust. And now the entire base just gets a black-brown wash. You can use really whatever you want here, dark brown, black, you know, whatever you feel like using at this point here. All this is really going to do is take all those colors that you have on there right now, and it's going to dull those down and just muddy them up, just kind of homogenize that whole surface right there. If you get a little bit too much here, just use your brush and wick it away. Now while that's still wet, go in and use a couple colored washes and just add a little bit of color filters and variations to this base. This just kind of simulates any type of spills or blood stains, you know, that might be, you know, on the base itself here. And you do it when it's wet, and it'll filter out and just mix with the previous color. Now that's all dry, I go in and I use some Ghost Gray and just give all of this concrete work some highlights. Now, depending on the size of your brush, you are going to get this on some of the other parts that you've painted, which is okay because depending on the situation, like it can simulate, you know, dust buildup and everything on here. You don't want too much because it will kind of ruin everything else you've just painted. But don't worry about it too much here. Just make sure you're cleaning your brush off, drying it off, and then go ahead and brush on, you know, these highlights. And now I go in with more of a warmer gray and do a final highlight over that Ghost Gray. The Ghost Gray was a very cool gray, and I'm kind of mixing it with a warm gray just to give multiple variations of color that flow throughout the base here. And I give a little dry brush or kind of overbrush with the same gunmetal color here, and just to bring some of those highlights and stuff for the metal back up. And now I go back in with that original like dark wash, and I kind of lightly just kind of go in and give it a very thin wash to bring that dry brush and those highlights back down a little bit. I want to tone those back because with any model, you do not want your base to take the attention of the viewer. You want that to be on the model itself. The base should just accentuate and build onto that. And now that Nikkit has joined the fray here, we go ahead and give the model a victory lap of black paint here. Finish off just cleans up the base. I do all of my bases in black. Some people do brown. It's really your preference. Alright, next it's time to seal this bad boy. So I use Vallejo Ultra Matte through the airbrush. You can use whatever type of varnish you prefer. Okay, and now to finalize this base here, I take some watered down PVA glue. I use Aleene's tacky glue and just thin it down on all the areas where it's like kind of sandy and rubble's broken up and all that on this base. I'm going to take and put down some Geek Gaming Scenics base ready, and it's a mixture of arid earth and I believe city rubble. And then I also mixed in a little bit of static grass into that, just to add some variation and some color like with that mix. And once that's all dry, I'll go back in with some more watered down glue and just lock all of that into place. And that's going to be it for that model there. Base is done. And we're done. This model turned out pretty good. I'm very happy with this guy here. I painted him much differently than I would any of my line troops. So it's nice to see one of my orcs painted up to a higher standard. Kind of similar to my Gazkul model. I'm very happy with this and just like where I took it. I'm glad I kind of pushed my boundaries a little bit and stepped outside of my comfort zone. I hope you guys liked it, and you know, maybe you can get a little bit of inspiration just from what I did here. So I'm not going to keep you any longer. It's already a pretty long video. So thanks again for joining me today, guys, and I'll catch you later. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for joining me today on Level Up Hobbies as I painted up Gorzag Gitstompa and his little buddy Nikkit. Yeah, it's been a while since I dropped a video, and I really enjoyed doing this one for Orktober, which I rolled into November. Just watch, it'll catch on, don't worry about it. But yeah, so thanks again for joining me, guys. I've got a couple other people joining me here right now, but I'm gonna let you go. Thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe. Go ahead and hit that bell icon and share the video. All of this goes to help the channel. Thanks again, and remember, build, paint, and play tabletop games.
Like and subscribe.
Later, guys.